The NFL draft is just a few days away, so today let's do my mock draft 5.0 presented by Underdog Fantasy. As I mentioned, it is officially almost draft season. I've already done a ton of mock drafts. My last mock draft was a 2-round with trades mock draft. Today's video is going to be a small step back. This is only going to be a 1-year mock draft, but I wanted to kind of switch things up in this draft. We're going to be going with a lot more of what the media has been saying and just the general vibe of the direction. So for example, with my first overall pick, Caleb Williams. That's the obvious one. This is where it gets a little fun. With my second round pick, Washington, they seem to like JJ McCarthy. We're going JJ McCarthy with the Washington Commanders. Now that you get my vibe, we're going with what people have been saying, and we're just gonna let things figure their way out. Pick number 3, the New England Patriots got to feel pretty good here. They just had Caleb Williams go off the board, which was to be expected. JJ McCarthy comes off the board. They're feeling pretty fine here, taking their number 1 prospect based off what I've been hearing, Jaden Daniel. That now leaves Drake May available at pick number 4, which means we're going to be getting a trade up with the Minnesota Vikings. Actually, let me rotate back here. Ideally, I feel like this Cardinals team is just going to sit there and take Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best prospect in this draft. I don't see a world where Arizona does not go with Marvin Harrison Jr. Sorry, I hate to tease you. Pick number 5, LA Chargers. This is where you're going to see a Minnesota Vikings trade back. It also makes a ton of sense for the Chargers to want to trade back. They have a ton of problems, and fortunately for them, Minnesota has 2 first-round picks. So I think it's going to be pick 11, pick 23 for pick 5. Probably one of these 100 picks. We're just going to go with 157, and we'll go with a 2025 round 6. And you know what? We'll throw a round 5 in for next year as well. Just throwing it out the wall. This is not what it's actually going to be, but it could be. We're going to force this trade. Minnesota in this situation obviously is going to be taking Malik Neighbors. I'm kidding. Drake May. Drake May to me seems to be the best fit with what this Minnesota Vikings team can be. He's my second ranked quarterback, but it seems like a lot of scouts don't love Drake May. Even though it seems like a lot of the fans love Drake May and think that he's the second best, it doesn't really appear like a lot of franchises and a lot of organizations feel the same way. To me, Minnesota seems to be a destination where he can thrive in with a system in Kevin O'Connell that has developed quarterbacks to be very good. Hell, Joshua Dobbs looked pretty decent last year. Pick number 6, New York Giants, fixed up a lot of their problems in the receiving core. This to me is going to be pretty clearly a wide receiver. Now it's a question of Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze. I prefer Malik Neighbors, and I think the Giants will as well. He fits a tad bit better with what this Giants team is going to be doing. Roma Dunze is a 50-50 ball winner. He's a guy who you want to go deep and make big plays. Same thing with Malik Neighbors, but he can also do a little bit more route running wise and so on and so forth. Roma Dunze doesn't really mesh well with Daniel Jones. I just don't think it's a good fit for him. If I'm him, I'd want to go to either Chicago or Atlanta. Pick number 7, Titans. I think every single person's mock draft is going to be doing the same thing I'm doing here. Sorry, Titans fans. I know it's boring, but you guys need a left tackle. Joe Watt is fantastic. He's going to fit in nicely in this offensive line. It's a given. It's a done deal. Just do the homework. It's a good pick. Pick number 8. Again, I'm kind of flying through this. I don't want to take up too much of your time today because I feel like mock drafts are getting a little stale at this point. Pick number 8 goes to the Atlanta Falcons. Defensive lineman, wide receiver, kind of in play here. In this situation, I'm not the biggest fan of Dallas Turner. It's really hard to tell what the consensus is within that Atlanta Falcons organization. There doesn't really seem to be any reports coming out about really anything of major craziness. They came out at one point and made a report that their edge rusher number 1 wasn't who everyone thought it was going to be, so I'm assuming that's Dallas Turner. I like Jared Verse a lot. He's my edge rusher number 1 in this year's draft, so we're going to go with Jared Verse. I compare him in some ways to like a DeMarcus Lawrence type of player. Somebody with good strength, good arms, can do a bit of everything, can get you 12 sacks in a year while also being a very good run stuffer. Then we're at pick number 9 with the Chicago Bears. This is definitely a trade back situation as well. If this is a team that wants to move back so that another team can go in there and take a Bo Nix or Michael Penix, go right ahead. But if you're Chicago, you already have your receiver position kind of figured out. You did really well. DJ Moore or Keenan Allen, that's pretty nice. Do you want to add some nether pieces along this edge rushing room? I think that's kind of where you want to go here. You took your quarterback. Now you take your Alabama edge rusher. What other team last year took a quarterback and an edge rusher from Alabama? Oh, Houston Texans. And they're looking pretty good. Chicago, you now have a star edge rusher and a star quarterback in one draft. You might just say that they have 2 of maybe the best prospects in the whole draft, depending on your big boards. Pick number 10 belongs to the New York Jets. In this situation, yes, you have that can be scary good. Pick number 11 belongs to the LA Chargers. This is a team that has a lot of issues to fix. To start off with, they need a receiver, and unfortunately for them, none of the big 3 wide receivers are on the board here. They also need offensive line help, but there is a Brock Bowers here, and he might be the best weapon in this entire draft. I feel like I always have teams trading back and then taking him. I think I did that with my last mock draft with the Patriots, or one of my last ones. That's just one of my favorite moves to make. Pick 12 is to the Denver Broncos. I don't think they're going to go quarterback here. I've heard some rumors and reports that they're going to stick with Jarrett Stidham. That is, to be honest with you, what I would do if I was them. This is a team that has a ton of big time problems, including a lot of them along the offensive line. They could also just go best available, or in this situation, you could trade back. The question would be, what team would trade forward to get a quarterback? And I just don't think there's any team that would in this draft. If there's any team that's going to take a quarterback, it's probably going to be Denver. But with pick number 12, I'm not taking Bo Nix or Michael Penix. That's just way too rich in my opinion. So in this situation, I'm probably going to take the best offensive tackle on board. I'm a big fan of Talisi Fuaga. He's my my number 2 offensive tackle, but I don't really know if a lot of people are going to have that same line of thought. I think the Denver Broncos want to go highest upside tackle who could be the best pass blocker, and that's for me Olufashanu, somebody who has inconsistency problems, but when he's playing at his best is one of the best pass blocking offensive tackles in the draft. That now leaves us with pick number 13, which belongs to the Las Vegas Raiders. Again, another team that could be in the market for a quarterback here, but I'm going to have them hold off here. They took Gardner Minshew. They need to kind of shore up a couple other positions on this defense, mainly in the cornerback room. I think that could be a position they look to address to find a true top tier cornerback 1. My cornerback 1 in this draft is between Quinyon Mitchell and Terran Arnold. I think Quinyon Mitchell has gotten slightly overrated a tad bit, where people think that he's a top 10 player in this whole draft. I think he's borderline in that realm, but I don't think he's in my top 10. I'm gonna go with Terran Arnold to be the future cornerback 1 for the Las Vegas Raiders. Next up, New Orleans Saints have to figure out the offensive line. Their offensive line is pretty abysmal with a ton of injuries and a ton of question marks. Talisi Fuaga is a massive human being. I think if there's a single weakness, it's going to be pass blocking, and I think because you already took somebody who was a bit of a question mark, I think you want to take the guy who is the safest option on the board here, and I think that's JC Latham. I think he's a very safe and very good player, has success at Alabama playing both left tackle, right tackle. You really need that versatility, you really need that big body guy. Go ahead and get a JC Latham to be a good fit for your offensive line. 15 belongs to the Indianapolis Colts. I've seen some people say Brian Thomas Jr., and I don't hate it. Imagine going up against the Stephon Diggs now being on, or imagine now going up against the Houston Texans with Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, Nico Collins. I've continuously gotten them cornerback, and I still think cornerback should be the position they take. But in this mock draft, because I want to change it up a little bit, this team just saw what the Houston Texans did, and they're going to say, okay, you guys took Stephon Diggs. Well, we're going to take the guy who's the most like Stephon Diggs in this year's draft. He's also a very nice complement to what you already have with Michael Pittman and Tank Dell. You kind of need somebody who could be that third option who can stretch the field vertically. Brian Thomas Jr. would be a fun fit for the Indianapolis Colts. 16 belongs to the Seattle Seahawks. Recent reports and rumors have come out that said Jackson Powers Johnson might not be a top 25 pick. In my opinion, I think he's fantastic, but and sort of the stigmatism around that center position. But this is a Seattle Seahawks team that has a ton of issues. Really could use interior offensive linemen. Be going out there and getting a Laiatu Latu to be very dominant edge rusher number 1 could be on the board for them. This is not necessarily a bad edge rushing team, but it could use a number 1 option. Like I said, the interior of this offensive line is just really bad. With the reports of Jackson Powers Johnson not potentially being a top 25 pick, I'm going to go ahead and take their word for it. Take Talisi Fuaga here. Oregon State has some ties up there in that, would that be northwestern area, I believe. I'm horrible with maps and locations. If I'm completely wrong, don't roast me, please. Talisi Fuaga can also rotate in at guard if need be, which I think will be a nicer fit given the fact that he's a bigger body guy who's still a very good athlete, but I think he'd be fantastic at that guard position. You have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Cornerback is the biggest need for them. Not a lot of steam or knowledge of what they're going to do in this year's draft, but who's available here with Quinyon Mitchell, I think it makes a ton of sense to take him. Cincinnati at pick number 18. Tight end is a massive position of need for them. They also figured out their offensive line somewhat, so I don't really feel like a tackle is that big of a need. You got Trent Brown on one side, you have Orlando Brown on the other side, you got the Brown guy. Anyways, Byron Murphy, the highest upside interior defensive lineman in this entire draft. I think he is a fantastic player. It's in my, I want to say I just made this video, my top 30 prospects. So go ahead and check that out. I have it pinned up at the very end. It's within my top 10. I think he is the best interior defensive lineman in this draft. PFF has Johnny Newton ranked above him. I've also heard many people say the same thing. I am a Byron Murphy guy to the heart and to the soul. But it does not last long, the Jerzon Newton / Johnny Newton fall. I don't really know if this is necessarily a fall for him because he's a lot of times been put into a lot of lower places in the draft. Who's Aaron Donald? You could really use that interior defensive lineman. Johnny Newton will be the replacement for Aaron Donald, but pretty tough task to replace Aaron Donald, let's be honest. Pick number 20 belongs to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Could you go offensive tackle, pair up to Broderick Jones, who you took last year? Definitely think that is in play. This is a wide receiver core that is just really thin now. Your number one wide receiver is George Pickens. I would love to take Adonai Mitchell, but in some ways, he's very similar to what you already have in George Pickens, so I just don't know if this is the right guy to put on your roster. And McConkey is not too high on my board. He is my ranked receiver, but I don't think that he's going to go this early in the draft. That being said, he'd be a fantastic fit with this team. I'm going to probably go here with Nate Wiggins. It's tough. This is probably one of the harder spots because there's a lot of options here. Darius Mims from Georgia would be a fun pick to pair him up with what you already have. Even go Jackson Powers Johnson. You know what? That's what I'm actually going to do here. I'm going to go Jackson Powers Johnson. I'm going to believe that he goes top 25. Steelers need interior offensive lineman help, the center position mainly. Jackson Powers Johnson is a Pittsburgh Steelers-like player. I think he'd be a good fit there. I'm going to stick with that, yeah. Miami Dolphins at pick 21 need a lot of everything and a lot of help at a lot of different positions. Number one going to be offensive line. Troy Fautanu, I've picked him here a couple of times. Big body guy, can stick to tackle, can stick in at guard. I think they'll probably use him at guard to start off his career, but maybe at some point move him out to tackle if they need him to. Philadelphia at pick 22 is probably looking at this draft board and feeling pretty damn good about themselves. They need safety help. They also need cornerback help. Cooper DeJean, I think he could be a good fit on this defense. I'm not the biggest Cooper DeJean fan. I think Nate Wiggins and Kool-Aid McKinstry are better. But given what Philadelphia needs, a versatile defensive secondary member who can play both corner and safety, that answers a lot of problems that this team has. So Cooper DeJean to Philadelphia could be a possibility. Next up, you have the number 23 pick, which now belongs to the LA Chargers. This is a team that traded back earlier with the Minnesota Vikings. With their first pick, they took Brock Bowers to answer some problems within the receiving core. Now you're going to look to address the offensive lineman with who is available here. I'm going to probably go with Amarius Mims here. Will likely stick at that right tackle spot. You obviously have your left tackle spot figured out with Rashawn Slater. You're going to take Amarius Mims to be your high upside, massive individual who I'm sure Jim Harbaugh has a ton of experience with. Then you got Dallas, a team that has every issue on the board here. I mean, really pick your poison here. I really want this team to take Adonai Mitchell. I think it'd be such a fun fit for Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Adonai Mitchell, but realistically, it's going to be Graham Barton probably. Tackle, guard, even you could probably put him at center. He's going to fill in nicely on that left side next to Tyler Smith. I think that's likely what you're going to do because as it sits right now, you have Brock Hoffman, who's going to be your starting center, and potentially Bass at guard. I think you can likely put Graham Barton at guard and move Tyler Smith to tackle, or vice versa. So take that as you will. I want to give a special shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest and fastest growing fantasy sports app available. I know the NFL season may be over, however, Underdog has plenty of ways to entertain us while we wait for the new season. You may not know this about me, but I am a massive NBA fan, and with Underdog's Pick'em games, I can earn some serious cash. Simply pick higher or lower on 2 to 5 player stats, and you'll have a chance to win up to 20 times your money in a single night. I personally love playing these Pick'em games on game day to spice up my afternoon. And all you have to do is use the link in the description below to sign up today using promo code MetroSports, and you can get your first deposit doubled up to $100 as well as an instant pick'em special. Check the map on the screen right now to see if your state qualifies, and I want to give a massive thank you to Underdog for sponsoring today's video. 25 belongs to the Green Bay Packers. They also have a couple issues as well. They could really use a future tackle. I don't love Tyler Guyton. He's not even in my top 30. He's not even in my honorable mentions. I am not a very high on Guyton at all, but the NFL does seem to be pretty high on him. He had a pretty good senior camp. Could you go corner here in Nate Wiggins to add a partner in the secondary alongside what you already have in Jair Alexander? I wouldn't hate that as well. In fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. I know their secondary isn't bad. They just add Xavier McKinney for God's sake, but being an upside player like Nate Wiggins next to Jair Alexander, that can really fix a lot of their problems defensively. 26 belongs to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that likely wouldn't hate trading back. There's a certain team that still could use a quarterback in the Las Vegas Raiders here. I'm going to have the Raiders trade up to take either Bo Nix or Michael Penix. Could they stick at 44 and stay there and get him? Maybe, but I don't think you want to risk it. You're going to go 44 and 77 and a future second round pick for pick 26. We're going to say that works. Or force this trade. Raiders move up and they're going to take a quarterback. Between Bo Nix and Michael Penix, I think Michael Penix is better. Sue me. I don't care what you think. No, I'm kidding. I do care. Let me know. Arizona at pick 27. I think they're going to go with the highest upside cornerback. You took Marvin Harrison. You take Kool-Aid McKinstry. Can't go wrong with that. 28 Buffalo Bills. They need wide receivers desperately bad. Happens to be Adonai Mitchell, who is my 4th ranked wide receiver. In this draft, it didn't work out where he would go number 4, but I think Brian Thomas is a better fit early early on for the Colts, whereas I think he's not quite as same fit with the Buffalo Bills. All right, and per usual, I am now on the right side of the board so you guys can see the rest of it. Detroit Lions up here at pick 29. Another spot where our team could potentially trade down. Denver is the only team here that really could desperately use a quarterback, but they don't have a second round pick to give up, so we're not going to make that trade. We're going to stick here with the Lions, and they're going to take the number 1 edge rusher on the board here. Latu, some medical concerns, but if you put him next to Aiden Hutchinson, this dude is ridiculously good. I hate that he falls in almost every mock draft, but I just can never find a spot for him to go to. Detroit getting Latu would be a home run hit. I promise you, Lions fans, you guys would be in good hands with him. Baltimore Ravens at pick number 30. Wide receivers is a big need. They could really go cornerback here as well, but there isn't anybody who I would take this early. Offensive tackle is going to be a very interesting question for them to answer. I got Tyler Guyton available here, so I might as well go ahead and take him. San Francisco's probably a little bit upset that Tyler Guyton went before them because they probably would have taken him. San Francisco has a couple issues they need to look to address. Offensive lineman, center, cornerback, center, a lot of different positions. I'm going to go with the highest upside cornerback on the board here, and that's going to be Ennis Rakestraw Jr. I've gone back and forth if he's first round or second round, but I'm going to have him sneak into the back end of the first round here. And that leaves us lastly with the Kansas City Chiefs, who are going to take the number 1 receiver on my big board who's still available, Ladd McConkey. You put him next to Hollywood Brown. I know they're a bit short and a bit stocky, but that is going to be very nicely. All right, and this is going to be our final mock draft. Let me know in the comment section below what pick you guys would change. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like and subscribe button. I love you guys. Peace.